Girl, sit down because I'm about to serve you the most beautiful, heart-wrenching loyalty goals story that will have you ugly crying and calling your bestie to tell her you love her. We're talking about Ruth and Naomi. And honey, this is not just some sweet little Sunday school tale. This is drama. This is devotion. This is the kind of ride or die friendship that makes you question if you're even doing relationships right. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let me spill this absolutely gorgeous tea about two women who redefined what it means to stick together through thick and thin. Trust me, by the end of this, you're going to be texting your girls some appreciation messages. Okay, babe, let's set the scene. We're talking ancient Israel, way back in the day when judges were ruling the land, and life was, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly Instagram-worthy most days. There's this family, Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons, Mahlon and Kilian. Think of them as your typical middle-class family just trying to make it work. But then, and girl, this is where it gets heavy, a famine hits. Not like, oh no, the grocery store is out of avocados kind of shortage. I'm talking about a full-blown crops are dying, people are starving kind of disaster. The kind that makes families pack up everything they own and leave everything they've ever known behind. So what does Elimelech do? He looks at his wife, he looks at his boys, and he makes the hardest decision any parent has to make. We're leaving, he tells Naomi. We're going to Moab. Now, honey, let me paint a picture of what this meant. Moab wasn't just another country. It was like moving to your worst enemy's neighborhood. The Israelites and Moabites, they had history, bad history. The kind where your grandparents still talk about what those people did decades ago. But when you're watching your family slowly starve, pride is a luxury you can't afford. Picture Naomi packing up her entire life into whatever they could carry. The dishes her mother gave her, the little keepsakes from her son's childhood, photos that existed only in her memory. Every item she had to leave behind was another piece of her heart staying in Israel. But she trusted her husband, and she loved her family, so she dried her tears and walked into the unknown. The journey to Moab must have been brutal. We're talking about walking for days with everything you own on your back, not knowing if you'll even survive the trip, let alone what waits for you on the other side. But somehow they made it. They set up a new life in this foreign place, surrounded by people who worshiped different gods and spoke a different language. And you know what? For a while, it actually worked out. Elimelech found work, the boys grew up, and Naomi started to think maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. Here's where the story gets interesting, and honey, it's about to get your heart all kinds of confused. Mahlon and Kilian, these two Jewish boys living in Moab, do what young men do everywhere. They fall in love. Hard. But plot twist, they fall for Moabite girls. Enter Ruth and Orpah, two local beauties who probably never imagined they'd end up married to foreign guys. Can you imagine their families' reactions? You want to marry who? The refugee boys from Israel? But love doesn't care about your passport, does it? Ruth marries Mahlon, and girl, from everything we know about these two, it was the real deal. Not just attraction, not just convenience. This was soul-deep, finishing each other's sentences, laughing at inside jokes kind of love. The kind that makes you think maybe fairy tales do exist. Orpah marries Kilian, and she's sweet as pie too. These four young people are building their lives together, and Naomi is watching these beautiful daughter-in-laws love her sons and thinking maybe this exile thing wasn't so bad after all. She's got her family, her boys are happy, and these Moabite girls treat her with such respect and kindness. For about 10 years, life is actually beautiful. Can you picture it? Family dinners where Ruth is learning to make Naomi's famous recipes while adding her own Moabite flair. Orpah braiding Naomi's hair and calling her mama, the boys working hard and coming home to wives who adore them, Sunday afternoons spent talking and laughing and planning for the future. Naomi is probably thinking about grandchildren, maybe she's already picking out names, imagining little ones running around calling her grandma. She's settled into this new country, maybe even learned some of the local customs. This is her family now, her home. But, honey, life had other plans, because just when you think you've got it all figured out, just when you're settling into your happily ever after, tragedy comes knocking like an unwelcome visitor who never learned when to leave. First, Elimelech dies. Just gone. The man who made the brave decision to move his family, who worked so hard to build a new life, who probably never got to see his homeland again, is suddenly not there anymore. Naomi's devastated, but she's got her sons, she's got her daughter-in-laws, she'll figure it out. But then, and girl, I'm getting emotional just thinking about this, Milan and Killian die too. Both of them. Gone. Just like that. Naomi goes from having a full house with a husband and 2 sons to being a widow with 2 daughter-in-laws who are now widows themselves. Picture the scene, because, honey, this is where it gets real. 3 women, all dressed in black, all crying their eyes out, all wondering what the heck they're supposed to do now. No husbands, no sons, no male relatives to take care of them in a world where women without men were basically invisible. And let me tell you something about being a widow in ancient times. It wasn't just about grief. It was about survival. These weren't the days of life insurance and Social Security. When your husband died, you were often left with absolutely nothing. No income, no inheritance, no legal rights. You were dependent on the kindness of relatives or, well, let's not even go there. So Naomi is sitting in her house in Moab, looking around at the life she built, the memories she made, the dreams that died with her family. And she makes a decision that probably took every ounce of courage she had left. I'm going home, she tells Ruth and Orpah. I'm going back to Israel. Now imagine being Ruth and Orpah in this moment. These are young women, probably still in their 20s or 30s. They've got their whole lives ahead of them, but they've been through hell. They could remarry, they're beautiful, they're from good families, they've got options. But they love Naomi. This woman took them in, treated them like daughters, loved them unconditionally. And now she's talking about leaving, going back to a country they've never seen, to live among people who might not even accept them. At first, both girls are like, "Oh no, Mama Naomi, we're coming with you." Because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You stick together. But Naomi, oh sweet Naomi, she's thinking like a mother. She looks at these 2 beautiful young women, and her heart is breaking because she knows what she's asking of them. She knows that following her to Israel means giving up everything they've ever known, everything they could be. Girl, before I tell you what happens next, make sure you've hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss this tea. This next part is about to have you questioning everything you thought you knew about loyalty and love. So, they start walking. All 3 of them. Probably with nothing but the clothes on their backs and whatever little bit of money they can scrape together. They're walking towards Israel, towards uncertainty, towards a future none of them can predict. But Naomi can't stop thinking. Every step they take, she's watching Ruth and Orpah, and she's thinking about their futures. These girls could have good lives in Moab. They could find new husbands, have children, be happy. But if they follow her to Israel, there are no guarantees. Finally, she stops walking. Right there on the road. She turns to these 2 women she loves like daughters, and she says the hardest thing she's ever had to say. Go back home, girls. Go back to your mothers. Find new husbands. Live your lives. You don't owe me anything. Can you imagine this woman who has lost everything, who is facing the rest of her life alone, is telling the only family she has left to leave her? Not because she doesn't love them, but because she loves them too much to let them sacrifice their futures for her uncertain fate. Ruth and Orpah are crying. Naomi is crying. Honey, I'm crying just thinking about it. No, 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 they're saying. We want to stay with you. We want to go with you. But Naomi, sweet Naomi, She's not having it. She looks them dead in the eyes and says something that probably killed her to say. Listen to me, daughters. I'm old. I can't give you new husbands. I can't give you children. I have nothing left to offer you except hardship and struggle. You deserve so much better than that. This is it, girls. This is the moment that separates the good friends from the ride or die sisters. This is where we find out what real loyalty looks like when it costs you everything. Orpha, sweet Orpha, is crying her eyes out. She loves Naomi, she really does. But she's looking at the road ahead, thinking about going to a foreign country where she doesn't know anyone, where she might never find another husband, where she might spend the rest of her life struggling just to survive. And you know what? She makes the practical choice. The smart choice. The choice that literally anyone would understand. She kisses Naomi goodbye, hugs Ruth, and turns around to go back to Moab. And honey, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that choice. Sometimes love means knowing when to let go. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is save someone from having to worry about you too. Naomi watches Orpha walk away, and she turns to Ruth. Look, she says, probably trying to keep her voice steady, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. You should go too. It's okay. I understand. But Ruth, oh, honey, Ruth has been listening to all of this, and she's been thinking, not just with her heart, but with her soul. She's been watching Naomi's strength, her courage, her faith, even in the darkest moments. She's been thinking about what it means to love someone, really love someone. And Ruth makes a choice that literally changed history. She grabs Naomi's hands, looks her straight in the eyes, and says words that are so beautiful, so powerful, that people still quote them at weddings thousands of years later. Don't ask me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me severely if anything but death separates you and me. Girl, stop everything. Let that sink in for a hot minute. Ruth just said, I don't care about the practical choice. I don't care about the smart choice. I don't care about what makes sense. I love you, and I'm not leaving you. Ever. Your struggle is my struggle. Your future is my future. Your God is my God. And I'm going to love you until the day I die. Can you even imagine? This young woman who could have gone back home and lived a comfortable life, who could have remarried and had children and been happy, looked at an uncertain future with an older woman who had nothing to offer her but companionship, and she chose love. She chose loyalty. She chose family. Naomi is probably standing there with her mouth hanging open because nobody, and I mean nobody, had ever loved her like that before. Not even her own sons had made that kind of commitment. Ruth, this foreign girl who didn't owe her anything, just promised to stick with her through anything life could throw at them. And you know what Naomi does? She stops arguing. Because sometimes when someone loves you that fiercely, that completely, all you can do is accept it with gratitude and wonder. So here they are, two women walking into Israel with literally nothing. Naomi hasn't been home in over a decade. Ruth has never been there at all. They don't have a plan, they don't have money, they don't have connections. All they have is each other and a whole lot of hope. When they finally arrive in Bethlehem, Naomi's hometown, it's like a scene from a movie. The whole town comes out to see them, and honey, it is awkward. These people knew Naomi when she left with her husband and two sons, when she was hopeful and planning for the future. Now she's back with a foreign daughter-in-law, no husband, no sons, and probably looking like she's been through hell. Is this really Naomi? They're whispering to each other. What happened to her family? Who is this girl with her? And Naomi, oh, Naomi, she's so honest about where she is emotionally. She doesn't try to put on a brave face or pretend everything is fine. She looks at these people she used to know and says, "Don't call me Naomi anymore. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." Girl, can you feel her pain? This woman is not okay. She's grieving, she's exhausted, she feels abandoned by God, and she's not afraid to admit it. She's basically saying, "You want to know how I'm doing? I'm not. I'm bitter, I'm broken, I feel like God has forgotten about me completely." But here's what's beautiful. Ruth is standing right there beside her. Ruth could have been offended when Naomi said she came back empty. Hello, she's not alone. But Ruth understands that grief isn't logical. Love isn't offended by pain. She just stands there, loyal and strong, while Naomi processes her emotions. Now they're in Bethlehem, but they still have the tiny little problem of, surviving. They need food, they need shelter, they need income. And it's harvest season, which means there's work to be found if you're willing to do the kind of back-breaking labor that most people would never consider. Ruth looks around, assesses the situation, and makes another choice that shows exactly what she's made of. "Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up leftover grain behind anyone who will let me." Now, let me explain what this means because, honey, this is not some cute little farm girl fantasy. Gleaning, picking up leftover grain behind the harvesters, was basically charity work for the desperately poor. It was hot, dirty, dangerous work that only the most desperate people did. And it was especially risky for a young, beautiful foreign woman who didn't know anyone and had no protection. But Ruth doesn't hesitate. She's not too proud. She's not afraid. She's not waiting for someone else to solve their problems. She sees what needs to be done, and she does it. Naomi probably wanted to protest, wanted to say, "No, I can't let you do that." But the reality is, they need food. So she lets her beloved daughter-in-law go out into the fields to work like a servant so they can eat. Can you imagine how that must have felt for both of them? Naomi, watching this beautiful young woman who gave up everything for her, now reduced to picking up scraps in the fields? Ruth, working in the hot sun alongside people who probably whispered about the foreign girl who showed up with crazy old Naomi. But here's what I love about Ruth. She doesn't complain. She doesn't feel sorry for herself. She just gets to work. Now, girl, this is where the story gets interesting because Ruth happens to end up in a field that belongs to a man named Boaz. And honey, this is not a random coincidence, even though it might look like one. Boaz is not just any random farmer. This man is what we'd call a total catch. He's wealthy, he's respected, he's kind to his workers. And oh yeah, he's single. But more importantly for our story, he's actually related to Naomi's dead husband. He's what they called a kinsman redeemer, basically a relative who had the right and responsibility to help family members in need. So Ruth is out there working her heart out, bending over to pick up grain stalks that the harvesters dropped, probably getting dirt under her fingernails and sweat in her eyes. She's not trying to get anyone's attention. She's not flirting or playing games. She's just working. But Boaz notices her. Oh, honey, he notices her. He asks his foreman, "Who is that young woman?" And the foreman probably smirks a little as he tells the story. "Oh, that's the Moabite who came back with Naomi. She asked permission to glean behind the harvesters, and she's been working hard since morning, hardly taking a break." Now listen, Boaz could have just thought, "Oh, that's nice," and moved on with his day. But something about Ruth catches his attention. Maybe it's the way she works without complaining. Maybe it's the respect she shows to everyone around her. Maybe it's the story he's already heard about how she left everything to take care of Naomi. Whatever it is, Boaz walks over to Ruth and says something that literally changes her whole day. "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you, and whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." Hold up. Let me break this down for you because this is huge. First, he calls her my daughter, which is respectful and protective language. He's not hitting on her or treating her like she's desperate. He's treating her with dignity. Second, he's offering her protection. He's basically saying, "You're under my care now. No one will mess with you here." Third, he's giving her access to the water, which might not sound like much, but when you're doing manual labor in the desert heat, fresh water is everything. But Ruth, she's so shocked by his kindness that she literally falls on her face in gratitude. "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" she asks. And Boaz's answer, "Girl, get your tissues ready because this is about to make you cry happy tears. I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Do you hear what he's saying? This man sees Ruth for who she really is. He sees her sacrifice, her loyalty, her courage. He sees that she chose love over comfort, family over security, faithfulness over the easy road, and he honors that. He literally prays that God will reward her for her choices. By the way, drop me a comment if you've ever had someone see the best in you like this, because, woo, this kind of recognition hits different. But wait, it gets better. Boaz invites Ruth to eat lunch with his workers, gives her roasted grain, and then, and this is the part that shows you what kind of man he really is, he privately tells his workers to leave extra grain for her. Not just the leftovers, but good grain. He's basically making sure she goes home with more food than she could have ever hoped for. When Ruth gets home that evening, she's carrying almost a whole day's worth of wages in grain, plus leftover food from lunch. Naomi takes one look at all this abundance and knows something special happened. "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." When Ruth tells her it was Boaz's field, Naomi's whole demeanor changes. Suddenly, this bitter woman who felt abandoned by God is praising him again. The Lord bless him. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. That man is our close relative. He is one of our kinsman redeemers. Do you see what's happening here? Naomi is starting to hope again. For the first time since her sons died, she's seeing God's hand at work in their situation. What looked like a terrible coincidence, Ruth ending up in Boaz's field, was actually divine orchestration. Quick pause. Did you like this tea already? Go on, tap that like button, and let's keep rolling because, honey, we're just getting to the good part. So now Ruth has a job, basically. Every day during harvest season, she goes to Boaz's field and works alongside his female employees. She's safe, she's earning enough to support herself and Naomi, and slowly but surely, she's making friends. But more than that, she's catching the attention of everyone around her. The other workers see how hard she works, how kind she is, how much she loves Naomi. Boaz keeps finding excuses to check on her, to make sure she has enough water, to ensure his workers are treating her well. And Ruth, she's just being herself. She's not trying to impress anyone or manipulate any situations. She's just working hard, treating people with respect, and taking care of the woman she loves like a mother. But Naomi, is watching all this with the eyes of an older woman who understands how the world works. She sees the way Boaz looks at Ruth. She notices how he goes out of his way to be kind to her. She recognizes the signs of a man who is interested in more than just being a good employer. One evening, as they're sitting together eating the food Ruth brought home, Naomi makes a decision that shows she's not just thinking about survival anymore, she's thinking about Ruth's future. "My daughter," she says, "I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for. Tonight, he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do." Now, honey, let me stop right here and address what some of y'all might be thinking. This sounds sketchy, right? Like Naomi is telling Ruth to go seduce this man, but that's not what's happening here at all. What Naomi is actually doing is telling Ruth to make a formal request for Boaz to act as their kinsman redeemer. In their culture, uncovering a man's feet and lying there was a symbolic way of asking for protection and provision. It was like saying, "Will you spread your cloak over me?" which was the ancient equivalent of, "Will you marry me and take care of my family?" It was bold, yes. It was risky, absolutely. But it wasn't inappropriate or manipulative. It was Ruth formally asking Boaz to consider making their relationship official. And Ruth? She trusts Naomi completely. "I will do whatever you say," she tells her, because that's what you do when you love someone who has your best interests at heart. So Ruth gets dressed in her finest clothes, probably not much, but whatever she has that's clean and pretty. She puts on perfume, fixes her hair, and walks down to the threshing floor where Boaz is working late into the night. Can you imagine how nervous she must have been? She's about to put her heart on the line with a man who has been kind to her, but who might not be interested in anything more than being a good boss. She's about to ask him to completely change his life by marrying a foreign widow with no dowry and a bitter mother-in-law. But she waits until he's finished eating and drinking, until he's lying down to sleep under the stars. Then, with hands probably shaking with nerves, she quietly uncovers his feet and lies down. Around midnight, Boaz wakes up. Maybe he's cold because his feet are uncovered, or maybe he just senses someone is there. He turns over and, surprise, there's a woman lying at his feet. Now, gentlemen, take notes on how a real man handles this situation, because Boaz's response is absolutely perfect. He doesn't panic. He doesn't assume the worst. He doesn't get angry or accusatory. Instead, he says very gently, "Who are you?" "I am your servant, Ruth. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a kinsman redeemer of our family." Honey, Ruth just proposed. She just asked this man to marry her and take responsibility for her and Naomi. And Boaz's response is, "It's everything you could hope for and more." "The Lord bless you, my daughter," he says. "This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character." Let that sink in for a minute. Boaz just said, "Ruth, you could have had any young man you wanted. You could have chased after someone rich, someone handsome, someone your own age. But you chose to ask me, and that shows the kind of person you are. Everyone in town knows you're a woman of character, and I would be honored to marry you." But then, because Boaz is not only kind, but honorable, he explains that there's one tiny complication. There's another relative who has first rights as kinsman redeemer. According to their law, that man gets the first opportunity to marry Ruth and redeem Naomi's family. But if he is not willing to redeem you, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning." So Ruth spends the night at the threshing floor, not in any inappropriate way, just sleeping there under Boaz's protection while he makes sure she's safe. Before dawn, while it's still dark enough that no one will see her leaving and get the wrong idea about what happened, Boaz fills Ruth's shawl with 6 measures of barley. He's making sure she goes home with a gift that shows his intentions are serious. "Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed," he tells her. When Ruth gets home, still probably shaking from the emotional roller coaster of the night, Naomi is waiting for her. "How did it go, my daughter?" she asks. Ruth tells her everything, what she said, what Boaz said, the promise he made. And when she shows Naomi the barley, Naomi smiles, probably for the first time in years. "Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today." Naomi knows Boaz well enough to know that he's a man of his word. If he said he would handle this situation, he's going to handle it. And honey, Naomi is absolutely right. That very morning, Boaz goes straight to the town gate, which was basically the courthouse, the stock exchange, and the social media center all in one. This is where business gets done, where legal matters get settled, or everyone comes to hear the latest news. Boaz sits down and waits for the other kinsman redeemer to pass by. When he does, Boaz calls out, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." Then he gathers 10 of the town elders to witness whatever conversation is about to happen. Now, this is where Boaz shows just how smart and strategic he really is. He doesn't start by saying, "Hey, want to marry my girlfriend?" Instead, he talks about the business side of things first. Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. He explains, "I thought I should bring it to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these witnesses." The other man is interested. Land is valuable, and this sounds like a good investment. "I will redeem it," he says quickly. But then Boaz drops the real information. On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today, you are witnesses. Hold up. Now the deal just got more complicated. This man isn't just buying land, he's taking on the responsibility of marrying Ruth and raising children who will be considered Elimelech's heirs, not his own. Any sons Ruth has will inherit this land he's buying, which means he's essentially paying for property that will never really belong to his family line. The man does some quick math and realizes this is not the business deal he thought it was. "Then I cannot redeem it," he says, "because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it." And just like that, Boaz gets exactly what he was hoping for. In front of 10 witnesses and probably half the town, the other kinsman redeemer officially passes his rights to Boaz. To make it official, the man takes off his sandal and gives it to Boaz. Don't ask me why. That's just how they did contracts back in the day. Today we sign papers. Back then they traded shoes. Boaz turns to all the witnesses and makes an official announcement. "Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilian, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today, you are witnesses." The whole crowd erupts in celebration. These people have been watching this love story unfold, and they're here for it. They start calling out blessings. "We are witnesses! May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem." Girl, They're basically saying, may your marriage be as blessed as the matriarchs of our nation. May you be rich and famous and have beautiful babies. But the blessing that probably made Ruth cry was this one. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. They're praying that Ruth, this foreign woman who left everything for love, will become the mother of a dynasty. They're praying that her children will be significant in the history of Israel. And honey, did God ever answer that prayer in ways they couldn't have imagined? So, Boaz and Ruth get married. And it's everything you want a love story to be. This isn't just some arranged marriage or a business transaction that worked out okay. This is two people who chose each other, who saw the best in each other, who built something beautiful together. Ruth moves from being a poverty-stricken widow, picking up scraps in the field, to being the wife of one of the most respected men in Bethlehem. But more than that, she's with someone who loves her not because of her past, but because of who she chose to be in the midst of her circumstances. And Naomi? Oh, honey, Naomi gets her joy back. This woman who told people to call her bitter because she felt like God had abandoned her suddenly has a son-in-law who treats her like beloved family and a daughter-in-law who never stopped loving her. But the absolute best part is what happens next. Ruth gets pregnant, and when she gives birth to a son, the women of the town say to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord who this day has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." Better than 7 sons. In a culture where sons were everything, where having sons was the ultimate blessing for a woman, the townspeople are saying that Ruth, this foreign daughter-in-law who could have walked away but chose to stay, is worth more than the most blessed family anyone could imagine. Naomi takes the baby and holds him close, and the women say Naomi has a son. Because in their eyes, this child belongs to the whole family. Ruth's son is Naomi's grandson, the continuation of Elimelech's line, the hope they thought was lost forever. They named the baby Obed, which means servant or worshiper. And this little boy grows up to be the father of Jesse, who becomes the father of, wait for it, King David. Hold up. Did you catch that? Ruth, this Moabite woman who was not even supposed to be part of Israel's story, becomes the great-grandmother of the greatest king in Israel's history. This foreign girl who left everything for love ends up in the direct lineage of Jesus Christ himself. Girl, I am getting chills just thinking about how God orchestrated this whole thing. And sis, don't forget to hit that bell so you're here first when the next Bible tea drops, because honey, we are just getting started with these amazing stories. But let's back up for a minute and talk about what the story really means. Because, honey, this isn't just some sweet romance that happened to work out. This is a masterclass in what happens when you choose love over fear, loyalty over convenience, faith over what makes sense on paper. Think about all the moments in this story where someone could have made a different choice. Ruth could have stayed in Moab when Naomi told her to go back. She could have remarried a Moabite man, had Moabite children, lived a comfortable Moabite life. Nobody would have blamed her. It would have been the smart choice, the practical choice, the choice that made perfect sense. But she didn't. She looked at this broken, bitter older woman and said, "Your story is my story now. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. I'm not leaving you." Naomi could have been selfish and let the girls come with her without trying to talk them out of it. She was lonely, she was scared, she needed them. but she loved them too much to let them sacrifice their futures for her uncertain fate. Boaz could have been kind to Ruth without going the extra mile. He could have let her glean like any other poor person and called it charity. But he saw her character and chose to honor it, protect it, celebrate it. The other kinsman redeemer could have taken on the responsibility of marrying Ruth, but when it got complicated, he chose the easy way out. Every single person in this story had choices to make. And the choices they made didn't just affect them. They affected generations. Ruth's choice to stay with Naomi put her in position to meet Boaz. Boaz's choice to honor Ruth put him in position to become David's great-grandfather. Naomi's choice to love unselfishly created a family bond that lasted for generations. One woman's decision to choose love over logic changed the entire course of history. Now, let me get real with you for a minute, because this story isn't just ancient history. This is about your life, your relationships, your choices right now. How many times have you been faced with a Ruth moment? A moment where you could choose the easy path or the loyal path? Where you could protect yourself or protect someone you love? Where you could play it safe or step out in faith? Maybe it's sticking with a friend who's going through a hard time when everyone else has walked away. Maybe it's choosing to forgive someone who hurt you instead of holding on to bitterness. Maybe it's taking care of aging parents when it's inconvenient and expensive and nobody would blame you for putting them in a home. Maybe it's choosing to love someone through their worst season instead of walking away when they're not fun to be around anymore. Ruth teaches us that loyalty isn't about what you do when it's easy. It's what you do when it costs you everything. Real love isn't convenient. Real love doesn't make sense on a spreadsheet. Real love says, I'm staying, and I'm fighting for this relationship, and I'm believing in us, even when you don't believe in yourself. But here's what I love about Ruth's story. She didn't just love blindly. She loved wisely. She didn't enable Naomi's bitterness or make excuses for her bad attitude. She just loved her through it. She worked hard to take care of both of them instead of expecting Naomi to fix everything. She was strong when Naomi was weak, hopeful when Naomi was bitter, faithful when Naomi felt forgotten by God. That's what real love looks like, girls. It's not codependent, it's not enabling, it's not ignoring red flags or staying in toxic situations. It's choosing to be the best version of yourself, even when the other person is struggling to be theirs. But can we talk about Naomi for a minute? Because, honey, this woman teaches us something so important about grief and healing that we cannot skip over it. Naomi lost everything. I mean, everything. Her husband, both her sons, her security, her homeland, her identity as a wife and mother. She was so broken that she literally changed her name to Bitter because that's how she felt about her life. And you know what? That was okay. It was honest. It was real. Sometimes I think we put so much pressure on people to get over it and move on and look on the bright side that we forget that grief has its own timeline. Healing has its own process. And sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is just be honest about how broken you feel. Naomi didn't pretend to be okay when she wasn't. She didn't put on a fake smile and act like everything was fine. She said, I'm bitter. I'm angry. I feel like God has abandoned me. And guess what? God didn't strike her down for being honest about her pain. Instead, he sent her Ruth. He sent her Boaz. He sent her a grandson. He sent her hope. But he did it in his timing, not according to anyone else's schedule.